I got married in Paraguay. And today I want to tell you everything you need to know before considering this big step. Beyond finding the right person, of course, which I'd say remains the most important thing, there are many factors that come into play. Laws, rights, duties, and some unique features that make this big day also very important from a planning and asset protection perspective. And since we'll be talking assets, I'll also reveal how much it costs to organize a theoretical wedding here in Paraguay. To begin with, Paraguay recognizes exclusively the union between a man and a woman through marriage. There are no cohabitation agreements, de facto couples, stable unions, or other forms of union between two people, and same-sex marriage is not recognized. The law governing marriage is Law Number 1 of 1992, which reformed some regulations that were already in force. Interestingly, for a conservative country, in Paraguay both husband and wife are required to contribute equally to the marriage, including the explicit duty to contribute proportionally to their income to the support of the couple and their children. The law does not tend to penalize men exclusively, as often it happens in other countries, both during marriage and in the event of divorce. It is also interesting to note that Paraguay recognizes household care as a fully acknowledged and socially useful function, such that if one person dedicates themselves entirely to this role, the other one is required to cover all the family's expenses. As for surnames, neither spouse can completely replace their own surname with that of the husband or wife. Both may add it to their original surname, and the effect of this decision automatically lapses in the event of divorce. Children, instead, will take the surnames of both parents, or the first surname of each if they have more than one. And it is the parents who decide the order of the surnames. At 18, if they wish, they will also have the option to reverse the order of the surnames. In case you're wondering, there is no direct pathway to Paraguayan citizenship due to marriage. You can immediately apply for permanent residency by marrying a Paraguayan citizen, but you will have also a much stronger case for your naturalization application when you decide to apply for it. The fact, though, is that just marrying a Paraguayan by itself does not start any counter towards naturalization, while Manu will be able to become Italian in 3 years, since we do not live in Italy, and I can become Brazilian if I spend 1 year in Brazil or I produce enough paperwork to support that I did. To all effects, the requirement stays the same. If you want to apply for naturalization, you need 3 years of permanent residency in Paraguay, regardless of your marital status. Let's move on to a topic that is always the trickiest: asset management. In Paraguay, 3 forms of asset management are recognized. First is community of property, second is deferred participation regime, and third is separation of property. Now, the initial choice can also be modified later through an agreement signed in front of another. Starting with the community of property regime, this is the standard one in Paraguay. Unless the will to use another system is explicitly stated, the community of property regime is automatically applied. In this case, each spouse has their own personal assets consisting of everything they owned before entering into marriage, their personal effects, as well as certain specific things acquired after marriage: compensation, insurance payouts, inheritance, pensions and life annuities, patents and copyrights, assets acquired to replace those already owned before the marriage. So, for example, a new phone replacing the phone that you already had before the marriage. But everything else acquired after the marriage becomes part of the shared assets. This means income from employment, business, dividends, capital gains on assets acquired after the marriage, and everything else that you can imagine becomes joint property. Since Manu and I work together with the same level of responsibility in the same company and the same importance, building everything we have together, we chose this asset regime. And of course, since we are in Paraguay, it was necessary to have a rule about cows. So, if upon dissolution of the marriage the family has more cows than each spouse originally brought into the marriage, they will be divided proportionally based on the number of cows that each spouse had initially contributed. This regime honestly surprises me because it does not exist in Italy or in most other civil law countries. I find it very interesting as an option, but definitely not for us since Manu thinks that the S&P 500 is the name of a car model, but probably interesting for other couples. In this case, all assets of a spouse remain under that spouse's administration. All income, profits, capital gains, interest, and any other form of proceedings are exclusively managed by the spouse to whom they belong. And for the whole duration of the marriage, those assets belong exclusively to that spouse, who can do absolutely whatever they want with them. They can sell them, rent them out, use them for themselves, post them on Instagram with the hashtag #MyOwnMoney. There are no explicit limits. However, upon dissolution of marriage, the assets of both spouses are divided based on the increase in their wealth during the union. So it works like this. If at the beginning X's assets are 100 and Y's assets are 200, and X and Y get married, while they are married they do whatever they want with their money. Then, at the time of divorce, it is assessed who had a smaller increase. So let's say X's assets now amount to 160 and Y's amounts now to 300. So X has increased by 60 their net worth and Y has increased by 100. At this point, the difference in growth between the two estates is calculated. 100 minus 60, result is 40. So those 40 are divided exactly in half. So 20 go to X and 20 go to Y. Consequently, X will now have 160 plus 20 from the division of the assets, resulting in 180, while Y will have 300 minus 20, which they must give to X, resulting in 280. The separation of property regime, as in almost all countries, establishes the spouse's assets are completely separate and will remain so even after the divorce. The only assets that will belong equally to both are those which ownership cannot be clearly determined, perhaps because they were paid partly equally by all spouses or simply because no one remembers who acquired them. Surprisingly, Catholic wedding ceremonies are no longer the most common choice in Paraguay, as evangelical and Protestant churches have become most prominent. We completely avoided any religious connotation and chose an exclusively civil ceremony. Most people get married in the evening and there is no tradition of throwing rice, but we did it of course anyway. And the civil ceremony is short, so around 20 minutes. The vows are read, the yes is said, and then you receive this very cute family booklet that contains several pages, one for each child. It's something we've never seen in other countries, honestly, and we really love seeing this incarnation of Nicholas Sparks, the notebook, in our hands, even though today it's still a bit early to write the first page, but we hope to film many in the futures. After the ceremony, the guests go to the cocktail reception, while the newlyweds go to take photos and get ready for dinner. We chose Tallerand for the dinner catering and Pederzani for the desserts. Don't miss our podcast episode where we interviewed Caterina Pederzani to ask her how she and her sisters built a dessert empire from scratch. For dinner, we had everything from sushi to meat, and of course the dessert table was absolutely huge because Manuela is Brazilian and in Brazil dessert is the most important thing. Afterwards, we had the pavlova as the wedding cake, honoring a tradition that originated in Italy. Too bad for George, who ended the dinner at the hospital due to an allergic reaction, but at least I can say that the money we paid to have an ambulance just in case was well spent. At that point, it was time to take the stage. Was I nervous about the wedding? No. Nervous about the choice? No. I was nervous only about one thing: the waltz. Every serious Paraguayan wedding includes it. 2 months of daily training, a Disney-style choreography, and a Broadway-worthy set. 180 pairs of eyes on us, so 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Come on, Ale, you can do it. In the end, it was a huge success, and from there, the party finally began. We organized traditional Guarani dancing, samba, crazy hour, mechanical polar bear, and of course, fireworks. Without a doubt, the most beautiful day of our lives. Everything was wonderful, but how much does a wedding like this in Paraguay for around 160 people cost? Manu's dress cost $2,800 and was made in Paraguay, while mine cost $1,600 and I ordered it from an Italian tailor who shipped it to me. That's because the market for grooms' dresses in Paraguay isn't exactly great. Hair, makeup and all preparations for Manu, another $900. For the bridesmaids and witnesses' outfits we spent $2,300 in total. For the venue, waitstaff and food, about $15,500. For decorations and lighting, $9,100. For wine, alcoholic beverage and drink stations, $4,000. For photographers, 5 of them editing real-time live photos, 2 videographers and a drone operator, $3,800. For music and the dance floor, $2,400, between samba shows, a mechanical polar bear, fireworks, hora loca, horse dancing, and other entertainment, another $6,000. For the wedding planner and the entire staff, another $1,800, and finally, the judges' service, along with all the minor service providers, such as the waltz lessons, cost us just under $1,000. Grand total? $47,600. According to the data we were able to compare, we would have spent around $110,000 in Brazil and $160,000 in Italy to recreate the same wedding. So definitely one of the positive aspects of being in Paraguay, especially because all these expenses were invoiced and tax deductible. The party went on until 1 AM, then continued for our closest friends at a hotel we booked for the night. Recently, this trend has spread that we really like. Instead of going back to your own home after the party, you head off for a one-day mini honeymoon with some friends. Having got married in Paraguay definitely makes us feel even more part of this amazing culture, and I think the way the juridical system has established laws about marriage here is extremely rational and fair. That's why we felt comfortable taking a step that, honestly, I wouldn't have felt so much comfortable taking in Italy or in Brazil. And just like that, that's all from Asunción for today. My ring is here, and I'll see you in Paraguay.